Most people don't realize that guilt can control you more effectively than fear. Fear makes you resist, anger makes you push back, but guilt makes you surrender. And the most dangerous part is that you often believe the pressure is coming from your own conscience. By the end of this, you will understand why guilt is such a powerful psychological weapon, how it shapes your decisions without you noticing, and how it is used in relationships, families, workplaces, and even society. More importantly, you will learn how to recognize when guilt is guiding you for growth and when it is quietly being used against you. Guilt exists for a reason. At its core, it is a social survival tool. Human beings evolved in tribes. If you harmed the group, you risked rejection, and rejection once meant death, so your brain developed a built-in alarm system. When you violate a social rule, it creates emotional discomfort. That discomfort is guilt. This feeling pushes you to repair relationships. It encourages apology. It restores harmony. In healthy situations, guilt strengthens bonds. But here is where it becomes powerful. The same emotional system that protects connection can also be manipulated to control behavior. When someone says, "After everything I've done for you," your brain reacts before logic does. The anterior cingulate cortex, which processes social pain, lights up. The discomfort feels similar to physical pain. You want relief, and the fastest way to relieve guilt is compliance. Have you ever agreed to something you did not want to do, simply to stop feeling bad? That is not weakness, that is wiring. Guilt works because it targets your identity. It whispers that you are selfish, ungrateful, cold, and most people would rather sacrifice comfort than see themselves as a bad person. Now consider how this shows up in everyday life. In families, guilt often disguises itself as obligation. A parent may say, "I sacrificed everything for you." The message is subtle but clear. You owe me. Over time, the child grows into an adult who feels responsible for everyone else's happiness. In romantic relationships, guilt becomes emotional leverage. One partner withdraws affection and says, "If you really loved me, you would." The statement ties love to compliance. The person on the receiving end begins to associate saying no with being unloving. At work, guilt can look professional. The team is counting on you. We're like a family here. These phrases activate loyalty. You stay late, you take on extra tasks, not because you want to, but because you don't want to feel like you are letting people down. Notice something important. Guilt does not need threats. It does not need shouting. It works quietly. And that quietness is what makes it powerful. Here is a surprising insight. The brain often confuses guilt with responsibility, but they are not the same. Responsibility is about your actions. Guilt is about your worth. When someone manipulates you through guilt, they shift the focus from behavior to character. Instead of discussing what happened, they make you question who you are. Why does this work so well? Because humans crave moral identity. We want to see ourselves as good. Studies in behavioral psychology show that when people feel their moral image is threatened, they rush to restore it, even if it means making irrational choices. Have you ever overcompensated just to prove you are not selfish? That impulse can be used against you. There's also a biological reward loop involved. When you fix guilt by apologizing or complying, your brain releases relief chemicals. Dopamine reinforces the behavior. You learn that giving in removes discomfort. Over time, this becomes automatic. Now, imagine someone who understands this pattern. They don't need to yell. They simply create small moments of guilt. A disappointed look, a quiet sigh, a reminder of past favors. You adjust your behavior to avoid that look. The control feels invisible because it feels internal. But guilt is not always manipulation. Sometimes it's growth.
Healthy guilt arises when you genuinely harm someone. It encourages reflection and repair. It leads to accountability. The key difference is freedom. Healthy guilt allows discussion. Manipulative guilt restricts it. If you express your needs and the other person responds with understanding, that is connection. If they respond with shame and moral pressure, that is control. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. When you feel guilty, is it because you violated your values or because someone else's expectations were not met? That question changes everything. Another surprising truth is that people who are highly empathetic are more vulnerable to guilt-based control. Their sensitivity to others' emotions makes them quick to take responsibility, even for things they did not cause. Kindness becomes a doorway. And sometimes, people who struggle with boundaries confuse guilt with love. They believe enduring discomfort proves loyalty. But love does not require constant self-sacrifice. It requires mutual respect. Consider this scenario. You cancel plans because you're exhausted. The other person responds with silence and distance. You feel guilty. You apologize repeatedly. You promise to make it up to them. But what did you actually do wrong? Nothing. The discomfort you felt was not moral failure. It was fear of disconnection. This is where guilt becomes a weapon. It exploits your fear of losing belonging. Once you see this pattern, something shifts. You begin to pause before reacting. Instead of rushing to remove guilt, you examine it. Is this mine to carry? That pause weakens the weapon. Guilt loses power when it is examined calmly. When you separate your worth from someone else's expectations, you regain control over your decisions. It does not mean becoming cold, it means becoming clear. You can still care deeply. You can still apologize when necessary, but you no longer surrender automatically. There is strength in saying, "I understand you're disappointed, but this decision is right for me." Notice how different that feels. Guilt thrives in silence. It grows when you do not question it. But when you bring awareness to it, you transform it from a weapon into a signal. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is tolerate the discomfort of someone else's disappointment without trying to erase it. That is emotional maturity. So here's the core insight. Guilt is powerful because it is tied to survival, identity, and belonging. It feels like morality, but it can be engineered. It feels internal, but it can be triggered externally. And unless you pause to examine it, it will guide your choices more than logic ever will. The next time you feel that familiar tightening in your chest, don't rush to fix it. Ask what it is teaching you. Ask whether it is pointing toward growth or being used to control you. That simple awareness can change the way you relate to everyone in your life. If this perspective made you reflect on your own experiences, take a moment to sit with it. Share your thoughts below. And if you value deeper insights into human behavior, continue exploring, questioning, and strengthening your understanding of your own mind. Because the more clearly you see your emotions, the less anyone can use them against you.